and say hello to our old pal, Eddie Hearn. Hey, Eddie.
How are you, Aaron?
How are you?
How are you?
This is nice.
Very well. I would just like to say one thing, though.
Please.
Because I did have to tell Saul after your interview with him that I did not promote the Kovalev fight when he was sitting on the sofa.
Yeah, you're right. He said, by the way,
that wouldn't happen on my watch. It wasn't your fault, by the way.
Right.
He said I was really annoyed with Eddie Hearn and DAZN. I was like, whoa, champ.
Yeah.
I never promoted that show. So just want to clear that one up.
Thank you for clearing that up, and thank you for coming on again. It's nice. We're doing this like almost every month now, where it's not quite IFL.
The last time was such a success. You actually made me popular.
Amazing,
again,
right?
Ariel. So I think not only are you a great presenter, you could also come on board for my personal PR.
I would consider it. I feel like you need some people like me in the world of boxing. It's a lot of the old guard guys. They're asking you the same questions every time. I watch it, but it's good to switch things up. Congratulations on getting back in business with Canelo. How difficult was it to cut this deal? I mean, this is historic stuff. He goes to Showtime, the last event, comes back. For you, how difficult was it to actually get this done?
Well, we had a great run together. We did 3 fights. I mean, firstly, let's just understand that Canelo Alvarez beat every champion at 168 to become undisputed within a year. So during a pandemic, right? So we did the Callum Smith fight. We did the Yildirim fight. We broke the attendance record with the Billy Joe Saunders fight. And then unfortunately, he needed to fight Caleb Plant for the last piece of undisputed. Caleb Plant is with PBC and they just wouldn't let him go. You know, we made an offer to them and rightfully so. You know, they wanted to use Caleb Plant really as an opportunity to bring Canelo Alvarez to the PBC and to Showtime. So I had to sort of bite the lip on that one and know that it was in the best interest of Saul. It was his opportunity to become undisputed. He wanted to make history. So it was difficult not being part of that. I was there as almost like a fan. And then this time around, it made me even more determined to work with him again. We've got a brilliant personal relationship, but it's business at the end of the day. And he's going to take the opportunities that excite him and Eddie Reynoso and that help him create this incredible legacy that he's building. And obviously for a lot of money as well. For me personally, for the Matchroom business, anytime you can bring the pound for pound number one to your stable, the biggest star in the sport, it's a blessing. And I don't want to sound too cheesy because I am, as I told you before, I'm a Canelo Alvarez fanboy. It's just good to be around people like Canelo Alvarez. You know, selfishly, it makes me feel good. It makes me even more driven because when you have that kind of relationship with greatness and with someone that's chasing their dreams like Canelo Alvarez, it makes me feel great, and it's a great position for us to be involved in.
So it's a massive deal. I think potentially as high as 160, right, for the 3 fights. If the 3 fights actually get done, the one thing that you've probably heard was pay-per-view is dead. This is on pay-per-view. What is your response to everyone who's saying, wait a second, you guys said pay-per-view is dead?
Yeah, I mean, I said that pay-per-view was dead at a certain price point, which at the time was $99.99. And I think that things change. I mean, people can pull up clips from 4 years ago. Obviously, the market changes. You know, the famous saying, yesterday's price is not today's price. And that really sits with someone like Canelo Alvarez, whose star has risen and whose value has spiraled out of control to a point where you're competing with all these other platforms who are looking to stage Canelo Alvarez using the pay-per-view model. Really, you have no choice but to use that model to bring a star like Canelo Alvarez in big fights on the platform. For DAZN, the subscription model doesn't change, but they do realize that for one-off special events or huge attractions, they will have to have pay-per-view functionality to compete with the likes of Fox pay-per-view, ESPN pay-per-view, Showtime pay-per-view. They're all doing it. And it's not, you see so many pay-per-views right now, you know, across Fox, across Showtime. That's so far away from the strategy of DAZN. But every now and again, for an Anthony Joshua, for a Canelo Alvarez, that is the model that is going to enable you to bring those megastars to your platform.
Is it accurate that if Canelo gets by this fight, and obviously want to give respect to Dimitri, but May 7th, and Triple G gets by his next fight, that they will fight in September? Is that a done deal?
It is, yeah. I mean, look, I'm not very good sort of hiding stuff, so I'm not going to sort of beat around the bush on that question. That is, of course, you know, the deal that is planned and the agreement that is in place, but everybody seems to be very hell-bent on focusing on the tasks that are ahead, and they should be as well because of the danger within those fights. Dimitri Bivol is They talk about number 2 light heavyweight in the world behind Beterbiev. He's an unbeaten fighter. He's technically outstanding. He's been looking for this opportunity for a long time. And Gennady Golovkin has to go to Japan and fight Murata on the zone as well. So 2 difficult fights, but that is the plan. The undisputed World Championship, the trilogy matchup with Gennady Golovkin in September, but all eyes on May 7th first to make sure they both come through.
Just wanted to ask you about a few other things, and I know your time is limited. Earlier in the program, your old mate Tyson Fury was on, and he said definitively that he believes that you told Dillian Whyte not to show up to the press conference yesterday. Is that accurate?
Absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. I've had no involvement in the negotiations of that contract with Frank Warren and Dillian Whyte's lawyer. I'm very aware of the situation. There's still a lot of things to resolve. Mainly the way that Dillian Whyte has been disrespected in certain requests that he has made, in terms of escrow, in terms of complimentary tickets for the fight. And I think it's just reached the point now where it's like, okay, well, if you don't want to respect me, I'm not going out of my way. And one of the requests was to have a private jet from Portugal, where he trains, which is, 2.5, 3 hours away, into London. You're talking about a purse bid of $41 million. And you expect a man to get on a Ryanair flight, which for you guys is probably translated into Southwest Airlines, during still a pandemic. And you want a guy to risk, sometimes these people, they want to buy a Rolls Royce, but they can't afford the petrol. And they've got to understand that you've got to treat people with respect. And Dillian Whyte, in my opinion, wasn't treated with respect. I've never told him not to attend a press conference at all. But at the end of the day, it was a purse bid. And Dillian Whyte has certain obligations under that purse bid scenario. And right now he's training, preparing for a very important fight. And I guess he'll see him there. Like I said, still things to be sorted out between those parties. But I'm not involved in that respect. That's between the lawyers to sort out. And, and Tyson Fury can say what he wants, but I wouldn't tell someone not to attend a press conference. I do think that whether there's mind games from Dillian Whyte or whatever you want to call it, I do think it's quite, not amusing, but interesting to see Tyson Fury out of control. They don't really know what they're doing here. And maybe it's mind games at Dillian Whyte. I don't know. But it's he's going to do his own thing, quite frankly. Dillian Whyte would never do what I would tell him to do anyway. He's his own man. And if he feels like he's been disrespected, then he'll do his own thing. But I don't think it's too much to ask. Like I said, from a purse bid of 41 million to at least bring the challenger in a way that would ensure, that there's not going to be any delays to the fight. If not, he'd rather stay in camp and make sure that he was physically prepared for the challenge.
Is there any chance you think that he doesn't show up April 23rd?
No, I mean, as I said, there's still things to resolve. So he signed the contract. There are still issues. I mean, Ariel, there are a lot of people in boxing. I wouldn't want to be owed $8 million by anyone in boxing, apart from Matchroom. In the UK, it's very easy to look at people's financial accounts because you have to legally publish them, right? When you look into someone's bank, which you can do into the UK, and realise they haven't got 100,000 in there, let alone 8 million, I would be very concerned about getting paid, right? Now, I'm not saying he's not going to get paid, but some kind of financial security for an amount of that much would be quite nice. So, again, it's a purse bid scenario. It's very different to a standard agreement. I don't want to bore the listeners with stuff like this, but in a purse bid scenario, you don't have to attend press conferences. You don't have to go to days and days of filming and be pulled around commercially. But at the same time, you don't generally get the opportunity of an escrow agreement, which you would, in my opinion, like to have in line for a purse of that magnitude. But that's boring stuff. Dillian Whyte's preparing for Tyson Fury. I'm sure he'll be there on the night, and hopefully they get everything resolved.
Nothing more important than what's going on in the Ukraine, but I'd have to ask, because of your guy, Anthony Joshua, is there a chance now that the Joshua-Usyk fight gets delayed?
I mean, it's difficult to speak on the behalf of Oleksandr Usyk. Firstly, our thoughts are with everybody in Ukraine and people showing incredible bravery out there, particularly some of our, the great fighters of the past and Oleksandr as well. So he can have the time that he needs. We don't want any other fight other than Oleksandr Usyk. So whether there's a delay to that fight and we have an interim bout, I guess that's subject to the situation with Oleksandr Usyk and how much time that he needs. It's a very emotional and personal time for the people of Ukraine. So we respect them. We'll give them all the time, but we wouldn't be looking to get out of our obligation, is what I'm saying. The only fight that AJ wants right now is Oleksandr Usyk. If we have to fight in between, no problem at all, but we'll respect this time for Oleksandr Usyk. We'll speak to his advisors. And if there needs to be a delay to the contractual period, we will be happy to grant that. But we want that fight, and we don't want that obligation to slide away.
I'd love to get your opinion on this. We saw what happened with Taylor and Catterall last weekend. I've heard you speak about it. And I think you can't really fix the 10-point must system. Obviously, it is what it is. But I really do strongly believe in open scoring. Now, I asked Tyson about it. He's in favor. I asked Canelo about it. He's in favor. How do you feel about open scoring? Do you think that this could help change things?
I was there when you just asked Sal the question. I like it. I mean, I think that the WBC already have open scoring in place with certain commissions that allow it. The British Boxing Board of Control is not one of the commissions that allow it, where after 4 rounds and after 8 rounds, you will see the scorecards. If it's every round, I'm not sure how that works from a TV sort of fan engagement perspective. I quite like the 4 and 8 rounds. It's obviously the 3/3 of the fight, 4, 8, and 12. But whenever I've been at a live fight with open scoring, it's quite exciting.
Yes.
And it can change the status of a fight. For example, if there was open scoring in the Taylor-Catterall fight, all of a sudden, Catterall has to go for it.
Right.
And from a TV perspective, it's quite thrilling that at that moment, rather than the controversy after, you can have the controversy during the fight, and the fight can change, the tactics can change and evolve. And I feel that we live in a world now where people want fast-paced, almost like electronic content. And I feel like something could be done quite interestingly with that concept in the sport, but also really important not to bastardize the sport and just make it, nouveau and new age and digital. Yeah, we're going to do this now. We need to keep the rawness of boxing. But at the same time, it would be nice to give someone an opportunity to change the face of a fight if they're going to go down, if they're going to get a bad decision, if you know what I mean. So after 8 rounds in the Catterall fight, you would have seen everyone say, Josh Taylor's up. And everyone say, what? Right. But at least the corner can say, you're getting robbed here. So you have to go for it. And that's going to be very, very exciting. Or at the same way, a fighter that thought he was behind is actually in front. Then he goes into a little bit of survival mode. I think there's a future there. But we have to keep evolving in terms of the judges. And there's been a lot of talk about corruption and stuff like that. Listen, I've been in the sport all my life since I was 7 years old. There's no corruption in judging boxing matches. Sometimes there's people who, don't do their job correctly. And they have to be looked at, like in any job. If all of a sudden you start putting a few bad shows together, Ariel, I know that's unlikely, but, you're going to get looked at by people. Same with me. If I put bad shows on, DAZN are going to look at me. And everybody has to be accountable for their actions within the workplace. And that's no different to a judge.
I know we have to go. Last one, 10 seconds. Is there any chance, the one I'm most looking forward to, Taylor Serrano, is there any chance it's 3-minute rounds? Any chance this happens or no chance?
No, that fight is contracted at 2-minute rounds. And look, we look to evolve. I don't think we need to evolve in that fight because I feel like we've come so far within that time frame. We talk about also females are saying, once the rounds get longer, we also want more money, all this kind of stuff. And we're not looking to duck out of that conversation. But a deal is done in place for April 30th for the standard duration of rounds and that's how it will be for that fight. And we look forward to, already well through 10,000 tickets for that. We hope to fill up the garden. And obviously you're involved as well, I hear, on a few little upcoming shows.
Wow. And I haven't said that to anyone. You're breaking the news.
Okay, well, I'll just break you the good news now, Ariel, to be honest with you. I hope you get paid well because apparently the deal's already done. So, if not, fire your agent.
What am I doing?
Whatever you want to do.
Oh, wow. I have free reign?
I'm hearing through Jake Paul and Most Valuable that we're looking to do some kind of sit down with Ariel and the 2 girls as well. So,
and I believe you and Jake, right? I believe you and
Me and Jake, we're ready. We're ready. You know, hopefully probably a big wager on the fight as well. I can't wait. You know, it's a real 50-50 fight and a pivotal moment for the sport.
Well, they said, big deal, big fight, New York City, Big Apple. You bring the big nose, you bring Helwani. So I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do it, Eddie.
I want to see you more involved with boxing, Ariel.
I would like to be as well. Let me know.
Good.
Your people, call my people. Thank you so much. May 7th, what a stretch for you guys. Unbelievable stretch. April 30th, May 7th, Canelo pay-per-view. Congrats on getting him back in the stable, and appreciate you, as always, doing this, Eddie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ariel. Take care, mate.
All right, there he is, the one and only Eddie Hearn, one of the absolute best